The Pit Press Podcast.
Welcome to A Road to the Pit, a high school journey. It's about our 8th episode in this. Since we started this, I'm your host, Ed Nunez, and joining me, as he always does, is ProView director and play-by-play announcer, also a former St. Pius assistant coach and St. Pius player, my son, Nick Nunez. Coach Nunez, welcome to the broadcast.
Coach, thanks for having me on. We've got a very special guest today in Harper Dunn. Looking forward to talking to her about her career at Corona Vaughn and some of the other things that she's involved with.
As you mentioned, Coach, our special guest today is Harper Dunn, who's a freshman at Corona. And in November, and we're going to be referring to this article quite a bit. James Yotis of the Albuquerque Journal wrote a nice piece about Harper and about how she's doing really well, Corona, what she's been trained and the offers she's getting and some other things that I think, Coach, that our listeners are going to find very interesting. And Coach, as you mentioned, you had a chance to watch Harper play just last week or Zozo. So you're going to open up the questions. Go ahead.
Right on. So Harper plays for Corona Vaughn. They are 11-3 on the season. Head coach Terry Ratcher, assistant coaches Alyssa Molnix and Becky Preston. Harper, you guys are on an 8-game winning streak. You haven't lost yet in 2024. What's been clicking for the Corona Vaughn Cardinals throughout this latter part of the season?
So we're actually a pretty young team. We have 4 freshmen that are starting for us. In the beginning of the season, we had some really close games that we lost to some very good teams as far as competition in the state. And just these past 8 games, I think we figured out how to stop turning the ball over, which was one of our biggest flaws as a team that we were really struggling with. So that's kind of been our goal all season, is to stop turning the ball over so much, because it's immediate points for the other team pretty quickly. So I think that we figured that out pretty well. We have a pretty solid press breaker now, and I think having 4 freshmen on the floor, we've started to click really well as far as passing and just figuring out where each other are on defense. So I think that's what it is. It's team chemistry, a lot of it.
Yeah, Harper, looking at your guys' schedule, you guys opened the season with Dora, and then you played the number 1 team in the state in the Max Preps rankings, also in the coaches poll, Roy Mascaro. You guys lost that game 55-28. You just touched on it. You think you guys have learned a lot as the season has progressed. But talk about that game against Roy Mascaro. They're certainly the cream of the crop when it comes to girls 1A. Talk about that game, how it went, and kind of how that may have been a turning point for your guys' season.
So Roy is a very talented team, and they're very consistent. And that was our 2nd game of the season. We'd only had 2 practices leading up to it. So we're very, very fresh at the beginning of the season. And to be honest, we were kind of turnover machines, all of us as a group, me included. And that's what really hurt us in that game. I think now we could go in and face Roy with a different team, but I think then we hadn't figured out as an identity what we wanted to present to the rest of the state. And I think that reflected a little as far as like offense. We hadn't quite figured out that rhythm with each other and just what we wanted to do as far as that.
Harper, you guys have been in some close games this season. On this 8-game winning streak that you guys have had, most of those wins have been by double digits. But you guys did have a close one against district rival Alamo Navajo on January 19th. You guys have lost a couple close games. You lost a 1-point game to Quamato, who's in the top 10 in the Max Preps rankings, also in the coaches poll. You guys lost to Mescalero Apache by 5. They're a 2A team. You guys beat Elida by 2, and then beat Dora, who's also a top 10 team in the Max Preps rankings and also the coaches poll. So talk about those games, those close wins. I think those are certainly important for other teams that are watching Corona Vaughn and Girls 1A.
Yeah, so I'm actually really proud of some of those games that we came out of, because a lot of them we came out of behind. And, last year, looking back, we wouldn't have been able to do that. It was like we got behind by 7, it was done. But this year, it's almost like it ignites a flame underneath us. And we're willing to push through and give that extra momentum that we need and extra effort that we need to get out of those. So the Dora one was really close, came down to free throws and some last second shots and some really good effort as far as defense. Then again, Quamato, we had some, once again, turnovers hurt us in that game. And then Mescalero, I think that game was just kind of an off night for us. But I think Alamo Navajo, I'm really proud of that game, especially because they beat us 3 times last year. And this year we had the resilience and the grit inside of us to come back from a deficit and go and beat them.
Coach, I know you spoke with Chris Pettis, who coached Harper Dunn in the summer. I know you wanted to ask some questions about that.
I did today, Harper. I talked to Coach Pettis, who was in Puerto Rico with the ABC and was kind enough to call me back. They're playing a tournament down there along with Coach Mason. And Coach Pettis said to me that they had a workout with your dad, Blair Dunn, and the lights went out, but your dad was shining a flashlight and you guys were able to get your workout in. But what he said to me, he's working on your core, mid-range game, says you've got great hands, some good footwork, a great work ethic. Coach Pettis was very forthcoming in what he said. What have you learned? And I know you've only worked out with him, a few times. What did you learn from him when you did work out with him?
So actually today I was in the gym working on some ball handling because we have a game tomorrow and I like to get a workout in before games. But some of his ball handling stuff is coming really, really well, just as far as ball control. And I've seen that come into play with games and the fact just having more control over the ball, whether it's dribbling or passing, has been super helpful. And then, we worked some shots with off the drive and off the move, which is, I think, a really key component to being a good shooter. So those were incredibly helpful. And then I just had a lot of fun in that workout too. So I'm really grateful that he was willing to do that in the dark with me.
Yeah, he made me laugh about that. And back in the day when we played outside ball and there was no outside lots, we had to, get the car lights to shine so we could see. And Coach Pettis is you mentioned some of the things mid-range. He was big about that. He says you got good hands, which is half the battle there. Your dad, Blair, who was 6'10", played for the legendary Bubba Jennings at Artesia, who I talked to a little bit. Your stepmom, Becky Preston, played for La Cueva and collegiately at Oklahoma, and is now an assistant coach at Corona. How will they help shape your game? Because they both got extensive background in it, and they continue, I'm sure, to help shape your game. How do they do that?
Oh, so I'm sorry, you kind of cut out, but I think I know what you asked. You asked about my parents helping with game development and player, right? Yeah. So I'm super, super lucky. My parents are very supportive. My dad is one of my biggest supporters. He drives me all over the state, whether it be for FFA things or basketball. Actually, this weekend we're driving to Oklahoma. We have to go pick up a show steer up there. But my dad's always willing to stay in the gym after with me, help me with that. But he's not the only one. So my stepmom is Becky Preston. She played for OU, and she's one of my biggest mentors in life, just as a mentor for me, because she teaches me as a person how to be a good person. But then again, on the other side, skill development is crazy. I mean, my free throw team today was working on that, but I wouldn't be the player I am today without her. And then my mom is one of my biggest supporters, whether it's a good or a bad game, she's cheering me on. So I'm super lucky to have really great parents.
It sounds Harper, like you've got some great family support there. And I'll tell you one thing you speak like you're 18 already. I know you're 15, right? Is that right?
I'm 14.
14. So, you come from a family of attorneys. We'll get to that question later. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah. So Harper, I was looking at some of your stats that are posted on Max Preps, and oh my gosh, it is so impressive to look at some of these numbers. 17.4 points per game, 18.7 rebounds per game, and 7.7 blocks per game. You're almost averaging a triple-double. When I watched you against Carrizozo last week, I was so impressed by your ability to impact the game in so many different ways. In that Albuquerque Journal article that James Yotis wrote, he quoted Brandon Mason from ABC Prep, who talked about how you have a motor. He also quoted your ABC Prep coach, John Skarsgard, how he talked about your ability to block shots. Talk about how that part of your game has developed specifically from your 8th grade year to now when you're a freshman.
You know, once again, I wouldn't have any of those stats without really good teammates and really good coaching, which I'm super, super grateful to have. As far as blocking, sometimes I say I kind of turn my brain off there and I let my body go on autopilot. But as far as from this year to last year, it's a lot more body control and being more deliberate when I go up. If I'm even going to go up for some of them, because some I'm like, I'm not going to get that. I don't need the foul. And I think there's a maturity level that's changed from here to last year. And then with that, with great coaching and people being there helping me through that.
Yeah. And Harper, you have an Instagram account. It's harper.dunn.14. On that Instagram account, you've posted quite a few videos of you in the gym just putting in work. And you talked about that with Coach Ed Nunez. He was talking about some of the workouts that Coach Pettis put you through. But I'm really impressed. There's a lot of different videos on your Instagram profile on you working about different things. Talk about kind of your workout routine during the season. What are some of the things that you work on when you're alone in the gym?
Well, I do like to switch it up, so I don't know if there's like anything particular, but I think we can see this with college basketball right now, and even to some extent high school basketball, is that post players need to be more versatile and be able to stretch the floor and move and bring the ball up, shoot threes, all the things that are not traditionally post playing style, but I think they're super important. But every day we need to be able to make 10 free throws in a row. For me, I have a certain warm up routine, and I do mic and drill. I do 10 cleans each side for mic and drill, which is the layup package, and then I go and I do form shooting, and then I have fun and shoot around. I like to get 10 shots in the high post, 15 feet out range, and then I'll work on threes too. And then of course some ball handling that Coach Perez and some other MoCan coaches like Craig and all the coaches that I have taught me.
Yeah. I want to talk about your head coach for the Corona Von Cardinals, Terry Ratcher. I spoke with her briefly after your win against Carrizozo last week. I was really impressed with the spots that her and the other coaches on the coaching staff put you on the floor. One thing I saw, they make it a point of emphasis to get you the ball at the high post. And if you watch you on harper.dunn.14, your Instagram account, you've worked on that where you catch it at the high post, you go to the right hand, you go to the left hand. It really seems like that part of your game has really developed to where that's a go-to move for you.
Yeah, I'm super, super lucky that Coach Ratcher and Becky and Alyssa will allow me to work and figure out what that style of game is for me, because that's very, very new. And it's even new for the past 8 games that I've really started to use that. But I'm super grateful that they're allowing me to figure out what that is for me, whether it be shooting up there or driving. But I'm super grateful for that.
Coach, go ahead.
I gotta make a comment. This wasn't written down, but I've got to ask you about your discipline in blocking shots. You just said the body control, and there's a couple of shots you say, I'm not going to get that. Don't risk the foul. And it's to have that kind of mindset at 14 years old is amazing, because there's a lot of shot blockers that want to get every one of them and go for head fakes. How do you keep yourself? Now, you are the tallest person out there, and your numbers reflect that. It doesn't do any good to be big unless we play big, and it's obvious that you play big. How do you keep yourself disciplined, though? Because some shot blockers, they want to get them all, But you said yourself, you lay off some of them. How do you keep yourself disciplined and not trying to go out there and commit that foolish foul?
I credit that to my dad. So my dad played for Central Arkansas for a couple of years, and he was a really good shot blocker. So he's been coaching me through that and reminding me, hey, you're not going to get all of those, but you do need to get those rebounds. And if you go for block shots, a lot of times you're out of position, and those rebounds are just as important as those blocks, if not more. So my dad and Becky have helped me with that discipline. And then sometimes I'm like, well, I'm just not going to get it. And then sometimes I try and I'm like, I definitely should not have tried to get that. But it's at some point it's not worth it. I'd rather get the rebound on it.
That's great coaching, because, and again, you mentioned the body control and, keep your hands straight up. block the ones you can. That's great coaching there by your dad and others, I'm sure. Josh Skarsgard, you mentioned Coach Skarsgard's been around a long time. He's your ABC coach during the summer. What have you learned? Again, there's a lot of people helping you out here. What have you learned from Coach Skarsgard?
I mean, I've learned so much from him. I've been with ABC. I'd been with him for 2 summers, so we'd been through some tough and some really good games together. But once again, I credit to him helping me fall in love with this game because it's my third season with basketball, and I started playing AU with him, and I credit him to helping me fall in love with it and showing me the good of basketball and how to get through the bad too, and of course, just player development too.
Go ahead, Coach.
So Harper, we've talked a lot about basketball in the first part of this segment. I sat next to your mom, Leela Hunt, during your game against Carrizozo, and she told me, she was like, Harper is so much more than just a basketball player. And the article that James Yotis wrote in the Albuquerque Journal touched a little bit about that. You have a steer that you show at shows and competitions. You have an agriculture class at Corona Vaughn. Your mom was telling me about a business class that you're taking at Corona Vaughn. Talk about some of your other interests outside of basketball.
So part of the reason the service is so bad, I live in the central part of New Mexico. We're very remote out here with my grandparents, and they own a ranch. So agriculture plays a huge part in my life. I have super blessed. I think I have one of the best ag teachers in the world. Some would say just the state, but I would argue just the world. So I do wool and horse judging with him, and then I do public speaking as well. And then I am not currently in the show season, but I do show cattle as well.
Talk a little bit about that. James Yotis wrote about that. Me personally, I have some ties to your area, Harper. My soon-to-be mother-in-law, Rebecca Hindi, she lives out in Duran, New Mexico, which is about 30 miles away from Corona. Her family has a ranch, so I'm somewhat familiar with that. But talk about what it's like showing steers at shows. Not a lot of people know what that's about.
It takes a lot of discipline. It's a lot of early mornings and late nights and being consistent, because that's where it pays off with agriculture, and specifically show cattle and any show animal, right? You get them around, we've had one since August, and then you'll finally show them in a year. So that's a lot of preparation as far as feeding, and then the whole process of growing hair, getting them ready to show too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be commended for that, because that's a process. I mean, that's something that takes a lot of work. It takes practice. And one of the other things that I think you were quoted on in that article with James Yotis is you want to be balanced. You don't want to be just known as a basketball player, because if you have balance in your life, if you have other things, agriculture, school, relationships with friends, that's going to make you a better basketball player on the court. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think balance is key. But agriculture and being with friends, I think that gives me the ability to be able to talk to people and connect with people as well. And then I think it contributes a lot to a good work ethic, because, there's hard days and then there's good days too in agriculture. And you have to get through them because those animals rely on you. And so you can't just quit.
Harper, I want to switch gears and talk about the atmosphere at the Corona Vaughn basketball game. I thought it was awesome. One of the things that I caught, this is at the beginning of the game when you guys announced the starting lineups. One of the things that you guys do is you guys go and high five the other team. They make a line and you go through, and you play club basketball with ABC, you play with MoCan. That's not that common to do something like that. So just talk about the atmosphere, what it's like playing in Corona Vaughn with some of the other teams in your district, like Mountain Air, Carrizozo, Alamo Navajo. Just talk about that atmosphere, what it's like.
So back to that starting lineup, our coaches, Miss Ratcher really emphasizes sportsmanship. So that's why we do that. It's a respect thing, right? We're going to respect the other team, whether we win or lose this game. And I think that's a really great point of view. And I think we play basketball to have fun and do a game. And I think we should always be respectful of the other team. And then as far as our crowd, this year we've been super lucky to have our gym is filled up. And, we don't have the biggest gym, but we do have a decent sized one. And seeing it filled up makes me super happy for the game of basketball, and that people in the community care about our team to come out. And then we're seeing that at all of our games just because our communities are so small that basketball has become such a big thing.
Who has the recipe for the brisket baked potato at Corona Vaughn's concession stand? Because I would like to get it. That is one of the best concession stand items that I've ever seen. And I have to commend whoever's responsible for that because it's delicious. It was delicious.
I'm trying to think about whose concession stand. I think that was our seniors. So I think that might have been Miss Sarah Mooseby or Calvin's mom, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Okay.
But they were
Before,
good, so.
yeah, and there were also brisket nachos on the menu. I could not justify getting both brisket nachos and a brisket baked potato, but the brisket baked potato was quite good. Since you brought that up, Harper, and then I'll turn it back over to Coach Nunez, talk about how your teammates have made you better. When I watched your game against Carrizozo last week, Carly Arampaus, Cassidy Lightfoot, Lindy Lightfoot, a lot of your other teammates really seem like they put you in positions to be a good basketball player. Talk about how your teammates have made you better.
I mean, they make me better on the floor, but they also make me better off the floor. We're a really, really small school, so we're really tightly knit, and I'm so grateful to have them. We don't always have good nights, but we're always there for each other, and we're so small. We do so much together, whether it be FFA, volleyball, and just other sports. So we've become really, really tight, and I'm so grateful to have them on the floor. I know I'm not always going to have a great night or even a perfect night, but I know that they're going to be there for me after the game in the locker room and during the game, supporting me through it. And they're just so fun to cheer for, and I know that they're cheering for me too.
Coach, go ahead.
Harper, what a great community that you're playing basketball in and that you're a part of because, you hear about starting lineups. I was a starter. Coach Nunez was a starter. I used to love to go out. Your dad was a starter. Your stepmom was a starter. And we all, love to hear your name starting, right? But I've never heard of that where everybody goes and high fives the other team. And I think that's great sportsmanship. It is. Back in the day when I played, I wanted to win and destroy and right. And Coach Nunez, your rivalry with the Albuquerque Academy, you felt the same way. And, we shook hands afterward, but that's, I think, something different. So I think you're playing and you belong to a beautiful community. It really is. Sportsmanship's the key thing. I wanted to win. I hated losing more than I liked winning. But I think those are lessons that we all can learn from. But what a great example there. I wanted to ask you this. You've given me a lot of attention here, a lot of offers from big schools as a 14-year-old freshman. How exciting is it for you to be getting attention from some major colleges? More are calling, I'm sure, more coming out to see. How exciting is that?
Well, I'm just super, super grateful that I'm even getting recognized and acknowledged. But I think it's proof that I do need to keep working and I'm going the right direction. And I'm really excited about it because it's just a lot of fun, to be honest. But then again, I think it's saying you're going in the right direction, and I just got to keep working.
You mentioned agriculture. There's good days and bad days, and those animals depend on you. You live on a ranch with your grandparents. I wanted to ask a twofold question. First was Dwayne. Tell us about Dwayne, showing Dwayne. That was part of the article with James Yotis. You show him and you take him, Dwayne, the steer, places to show. Tell us about the challenges of that. You mentioned some of them, but Dwayne is your steer, and you take him to shows and show him things like that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I do have some bad news. Dwayne is no longer with us. We had to part ways, sadly. But yeah, Dwayne was one of my favorite show steers. He was not every judge's type, and I acknowledge that. We ended up taking him to 3 shows, so the New Mexico State Fair Eastern and then the Arizona National Show. And let me tell you, this year was just a lot of fun to show. Me and my dad used to joke, he liked to pose for the camera. Just loved attention, just ate it up. Absolutely so fun to show, to the point where, you could walk around him and he would just stand there. Fabulous to show. We did have some challenges getting him ready for shows just because he was such a late maturing steer. So when we brought him to the State Fair in Eastern, he wasn't quite ready. And then Arizona, we didn't end up doing as well as I would have hoped. But then again, he's one of the best steers we've ever had, and I'm super proud of how he turned out. And then again, he was just a really, really fun steer to have.
And there'll be more, I'm sure. Got about a couple more questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up. You come from a prominent family of attorneys. Your grandfather, Aubrey Dunn, the land commissioner. Your father, Blair Dunn, an attorney. You mentioned public speaking. You do a lot of, which at 14, I think is great. I remember joining Toastmasters as an adult, and some of the topics they give you to speak on were like, made me a much better speaker, though. It really did. Is there plans for you, maybe to, what are plans for maybe after basketball? And that's a ways off. You've got a long way to, to go to continue this career that's just really getting started. Any plans for maybe you to join the attorney field there?
So me and my family actually like to joke about this because we have a lot of lawyers on my mom's side too. My grandfather's a lawyer, and then my mom works with lawyers. But as you can probably tell, I really do like talking to people, and I like relationships. That's one of my favorite things to do. I don't think I want to be a lawyer, though. I think I'd like to do something with sports broadcasting, but I do think I'd like a relationship aspect with whatever job I choose.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach, she's an aspiring sports broadcaster, and maybe if we can get her on a game with us to be a color commentator, I think she'd do a great job. Coach, you got anything else?
Yeah, a couple more questions for you, Harper. Want to ask you about your club circuit teams, and then I want to finish by asking you about the remainder of your high school season. We've already talked about it a little bit. You played with ABC Prep, but it seems like this summer you got connected with the Mocan Basketball Club. You played a tournament in Louisville. So just talk about your experiences on the national level there. Not a lot of people get those opportunities. What was it like for you?
Well, it was really eye-opening. You walk into a gym and you see like 8 other girls your height, and it's exciting. It's another challenge. It's something else we have to work on. But yeah, I went to the tournament there, and I met Dennis, who is the director of MoCan for the girls' side, and he's absolutely phenomenal. He's a lot of fun to be around. He's super, super knowledgeable when it comes to basketball and girls recruiting and just everything around it. And we clicked really well. Playing with those girls, I had a lot of fun, and they're a really great community, and I think I'd like to continue playing with them and at that higher level as well.
Yeah, so talk about your teammates. I mean, I imagine there's probably not very many players from New Mexico, if any, on the Mocan Basketball Club. Where do your teammates play, and kind of what do you know about them?
So I'm the only one from New Mexico. Most of them are from Kansas. Zoe is another very high recruit. She's super talented, one of the best I've seen. Like her path, being able to see the floor is amazing. There's some other girls. Bella, she's absolutely amazing. She's fun to get to know too. Great shooter. Has like her layup package is just phenomenal. The whole team of girls, they're incredibly talented, going to go play at the next level, and I'm super grateful to get to play with them.
Right on. Now I want to switch gears and talk about the remainder of your high school season. You guys got a game tomorrow in Gallup against Hozo Academy. Once you guys play that, I think you will have gone through everyone in your district. One of the things that I was surprised, I was speaking with Coach Ratcher. I'm like, how is Corona Vaughn not ranked in the top 10? And I looked at the latest NMOT coaches poll. You guys got 9 votes, so you're pretty close to the 10 spot. We talked about it at the beginning of this podcast. You guys have played some ranked teams in the top 10. You beat Dora. You lost by 1 to Kamado. But what do you think this team has to do for the remainder of the regular season to put itself in a good position for the state tournament?
Yeah, I think we just keep the trajectory that we're going at and working together, and I think that'll get us there. Keep working on the same things that we've been working on all season, being consistent with that and getting better, and I think we're going to go right in and hopefully do well at state.
Last question I have for you, Harper. What are some goals that you have for yourself individually, and then also, I guess, as a team for this season?
Well, obviously, as a team, I hope that we can go win state and just grow as a group of basketball players and get better. I think that we're doing that, and I hope that we continue to do that. But I do think that we could have a chance to go win state. For me, as a basketball player, I'd like to continue to be more comfortable on the floor, doing different things, bringing the ball up, shooting. I want to continue to be a great teammate. I think that's super important. Is cheering on your other teammates is just as important as being able to handle the ball. And then as another thing, I like to continue to grow my mental strength, that resilience, that grit to come back and be locked into the game, even if it's not a good game.
Right on. Coach?
Harper, the mental part of the game is my Coach Nunez. I coached Coach Nunez in AAU ball, and I remember maybe sometimes I wasn't the best coach because I think mentally he'd make me so mad sometimes. Your kid can do that, but I think that mental part is something to work on because there's divots in the road for any team, and how we come out of them is it makes us the character that we are. So there's so many things you're working on as far as your overall persona, not just with basketball. You mentioned agriculture, which is huge. There's challenges there. You're challenging yourself, making yourself better. So we're very impressed. Harper Dunn, freshman at Corona High School, we sure appreciate you joining us on the Road to the Pit high school basketball journey. It's certainly our pleasure to be able to talk to you this evening.
Thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And it was super nice meeting you. And thank you, Nick, for coming out to my game. I know it's not the quickest drive, but thank you.
Of course, Harper. I hope to watch one more before the season's over. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harper.